The grave under purple sky asterisk, the sky over Nara 5 turned deep purple as the twin suns dipped behind the jagged hills and silence spread across the broken land. Among the scattered ruins of an old village stood a single figure, a mother. Her skin shimmered like moonlight, her eyes dim and empty. She had not spoken to one for weeks. She came here every evening to kneel in front of a small crystal shard pushed into the ground. It was a grave. A tiny grave, she whispered to the wind, in her alien tongue, words filled with sadness and pain. She touched the cold shard and pressed her forehead against it. Her hands trembled as memories played in her mind, bright laughter, a small hand gripping her finger, the soft warmth of her child sleeping beside her. That was before the sky burned, before the humans came, before everything vanished in a flash. Of war, her name was Solari, and she was once a proud healer of the Valari people. But now she was just a mother without a child. They told her the raiders had taken everything. They told her the fire consumed all. But no one could give her a body, no one could show her proof. Only this shard remained, a gift from the elders, marked with her daughter's name in glowing script. She sat down by the grave again, not caring about the dust or the cold breeze. Her eyes closed, but tears still escaped, falling silently onto the hard ground. Every sound in the forest made her heart jump, hoping, just for a moment, that a miracle would come, that someone would call her name, that her daughter would return, laughing like before. Far above the planet, a human space station floated hidden behind clouds cloaked from alien sensors. Inside one of the lower decks, behind locked doors and blinking lights, a child lay sleeping under warm lights. Her small chest rose and fell steadily, her skin glowing faint blue in rhythm. Machines beeped softly, scanning her vitals. She was alive. A man stood near the glass chamber, watching her closely. His uniform was half open, his hair a mess, and his eyes red with sleepless nights. His name was Elias Reed, combat medic with too many scars and too many secrets. He touched the panel gently, whispering to the girl, even though she was still too weak to reply. He had no orders to save her. He was told to leave all alien life behind during evacuation. But when he heard the faint cry under the rubble, when he saw the tiny hand sticking out from burning stone, he couldn't walk away. He wrapped her in his jacket and carried her through fire and falling debris. He disobeyed the call. He lied in his report. He made up a story. And then he hid her. Now 6 months had passed. Her wounds were gone, but her mind was still locked in sleep. The doctors thought she would never wake. They didn't know who she was. Elias never told them. He called her Zara today. Something was different. Her fingers moved slowly. Her lips parted slightly. And then, without warning, her eyes opened, bright blue like the crystal sky. She blinked twice, then said one word softly but clearly. It was not in English, but Elias understood. She said, "Mom." Elias froze, his heart skipping a beat. He stepped closer, trying to stay calm. He didn't want to scare her. She looked at him, confused, afraid, and weak. He smiled gently, kneeling beside her. "Chamber, it's okay, you're safe," he said softly, but Zara didn't hear him. She reached toward the ceiling, her fingers curling like she was grabbing something. Her mouth moved again, forming strange symbols in the air. And then her body began to glow. Brighter warning lights flashed on the panel. The AI system detected energy spikes. Elias stood up quickly, checking the systems. Zara's body was waking up, but so was something inside her, something not fully understood. Human tech had mixed with alien biology in her blood during the treatment. Something new was forming. Elias knew he had to tell someone, but who could he trust? If Command found out, they would take her away. They would study her. She would never see her mother again. And that was a promise Elias had made to himself, to her unconscious form, to the mother who still believed her child was gone on the planet below. Solari stood up slowly, brushing off dust from her knees. The stars began to appear one by one across the purple sky. She pressed a small pendant to her lips, whispering her daughter's name once more. Before walking away, she Didn't know her child had just opened her eyes in the stars above. She didn't know a human had broken every rule to save a single life. She didn't know that the wind was about to carry something new across the world. A hope she thought had died long ago, but the universe had already changed, and nothing would ever be the same again. The human who didn't follow orders. 6 months ago, the skies over Nara 5 were filled with fire. Human forces dropped from orbit like falling stars, burning everything they touched. It was not a peaceful mission. It was a cleanup order. Raiders had attacked a colony, and both alien and human settlements were caught in between. The command was clear: evacuate allies, eliminate hostiles, and leave no trace behind. Elias Reed wasn't a soldier like the rest. He was a combat medic, trained to patch bodies, not break them. But on that day, even he carried a sidearm. Flames danced across the ruined ground and smoke choked the air as he ran through the last street of a forgotten alien village, searching for survivors. His boots crushed broken toys, burnt scrolls, and torn claws. As he moved, his cum buzzed loudly. Reed, get out now, final shuttle leaves in 2 minutes. He should have turned back. He should have listened. But something pulled him forward. A sound. A cry, faint and broken, like a wounded bird. He pushed through the rubble, ignoring the flames licking at his legs, and the cracks forming in the stone beneath his feet. Then he saw Ida Hand's small blue fingers sticking out from under a collapsed wall. Not moving, not calling. Just there like a ghost, begging to be noticed. Without thinking, he dropped to his knees and began digging. Stone by stone, cut by sharp edges. Coughing from the smoke, he pulled away the last block and saw her. A tiny alien girl, half buried, her face bruised, her body barely breathing. But alive. He didn't know her name. He didn't know who she belonged to. He didn't care. He grabbed her, wrapped her in his jacket, and ran. The final shuttle was already lifting, but the pilot saw him through the dust and dropped the ramp. Just long enough for Elias to jump aboard. No one asked. No one looked. She was hidden under equipment, cold and silent. The AI didn't detect her life signs because she was too weak to register. It was a miracle or a mistake. Elias didn't know yet. Back on the orbital station, Elias worked quietly. He told the doctors she was a genetic experiment gone wrong, found near a crash site. Most didn't care. Just another patient to test on. But Elias kept her file locked and her body guarded. He monitored her health, fed her through tubes, and read her stories even when she was unconscious. He named her Zara. She didn't wake. Not for days, not for weeks. Her alien biology reacted slowly to human medicine. Sometimes she twitched in her sleep or let out soft sounds. Elias stayed by her side every night, even when he was on duty. He cleaned her face, combed her hair, and whispered promises he wasn't sure he could keep. I'll take you home one day, he said, often not knowing if it was even possible. Other officers laughed at him. Some called him broken. Others warned him. You get attached to aliens, you'll get burned, they said. But Elias didn't listen. He remembered the moment he saw her buried under rubble and how his hands moved without orders. He had seen too much death already. Just saving one life felt like enough. Now, 6 months later, Zara had opened her eyes. Her voice was soft but clear. Elias had recorded the moment and kept replaying it. She had said "mama" in her language, not in his. That meant her memories were returning. That meant she remembered her mother. That meant her mother might still be somewhere waiting. Elias looked through the data files, secretly using the base's satellite scans. He searched for signs of life in the region where he found her. And then he saw something strange. Every evening at the same time, one lone heat signature appeared near the ruins. It didn't move much. It just sat there and vanished after an hour. Every day, same spot, like a ritual. His hands shook as he zoomed in. The image was blurry but clear enough. It was a woman, blue skin glowing softly in the dark. She was always alone, always kneeling, always in the same place. Elias didn't know how to react. He leaned back in his chair, heart pounding. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't thought far ahead. He just wanted to save the girl. Now the pieces were falling together. Zara had a mother, and her mother thought she was dead. He turned to the sleeping girl again. Her breathing was steady. Her skin now pulsed with soft light. Her readings were getting stronger. Her brain waves were spiking in ways human tech couldn't explain. She wasn't just healing, she was evolving. Elias made a decision. One that would cost him everything if caught. But he didn't care anymore. The war, the rules, the politics, none of it mattered now. Only one thing mattered. She needed her mother. He opened a hidden drawer and pulled out a small case containing forged ID chips, an oxygen breather, and terrain gear. He had been building this escape plan for months, but never had the courage to use it. Until now he placed his hand on the chamber glass. "Hang on, Zara," he whispered. "I'm taking you home." And far below on the surface, under the growing twilight, Solari looked up at the stars, feeling something she had not felt in months. A heartbeat, a hope, a whisper across the sky. The girl who glowed asterisk. The ship's lights flickered as Elias walked through the quiet corridor, his boots echoing softly against the steel floor. Every step felt heavier than the last. His stolen access card worked on every lock so far, but time was slipping fast. Zara lay in his arms, wrapped in a gray thermal cloak, her tiny frame barely moving. But something inside her had changed. She wasn't just recovering now, she was glowing. It started with her fingertips, faint blue light pulsing under the skin. Then her veins shimmered like star trails and spread to her eyes, which opened for seconds at a time, only to stare blankly at the ceiling like she was seeing something far away. Elias tried to speak to her, but she never responded. She just reached out toward things that weren't there and whispered soft alien words no one taught her. His breath caught each time she spoke. It was like hearing someone recite a forgotten prayer. Elias stepped into the last chamber, his hidden launch pod stashed deep in the cargo bay. Only meant for emergency escape, never used. He placed Zara gently in the reclined seat and fastened her belts. As he activated the pod's stealth systems, he heard a soft humming. He turned. Zara was no longer asleep. She was hovering, her body slowly lifted off the seat, like weight had stopped applying to her. Her arms spread wide, and her eyes blazed bright, as if galaxies swirled inside them. Elias stepped back, stunned. The glow around her grew stronger, and the floor beneath her vibrated slightly. Her mouth opened again, and she sang, not in any melody known to humans. The sound was raw and echoing like wind inside a cave, like ancient music from a time before memory. The walls of the pod shimmered in response, and for a moment Elias could see shadows and symbols dancing along the metal. Language maybe, or memory. Then her voice stopped and she fell back into the seat as if nothing happened. Elias rushed forward, catching her head before it hit the side. Her breathing was shallow again, and the light faded, but her skin still sparkled faintly like starlight trapped beneath flesh. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew they couldn't stay as the pod launched silently from the station, leaving no signal trace. Elias looked back at the stars disappearing behind them. He had just become a criminal in every corner of the galaxy. If caught, he'd be tried for treason, smuggling, and aiding alien life. But none of it mattered anymore, because Zara had spoken again before passing out. She had said the word, honed down. On Nara 5, Solari sat once more beside the small grave. The winds tonight were strong, rustling the trees and bending the dry grass flat. She held her pendant tightly and closed her eyes. Her heart felt strange, like something far away had just called to her. She listened closely, not with ears, but with soul, and for a brief second, she felt warmth inside her chest. A tiny flicker of life that she knew instantly. It was her daughter. Solari stood quickly and looked to the sky. Something was coming. She didn't know what or how, but her instinct sharpened. She began walking, not back to her cave, but toward the mountain pass, where the last of the sky paths remained open. She didn't know what waited at the end, but her feet moved faster. With each step, Zara's mind, meanwhile, was far away. She was dreaming, or maybe remembering. She saw two worlds split by fire. She stood in a field of blue flowers while a figure with silver eyes watched her from a broken mirror. That mirror cracked slowly and bled light. From the cracks came symbols, then stars, and then names she didn't understand. But one name stayed. One feeling remained, the feeling of her mother's arms. She reached forward in the dream, and the light wrapped around her hands like threads. She pulled and felt herself rising again. Somewhere in her mind, a voice whispered softly, "You must return. You must connect, or the cycle will break." She didn't know who spoke, but she believed them. The pod landed in the outer cliffs without sound. Elias carried Zara through the rocky tunnels, guided only by his old memory maps. He had once helped build field camps here during the early stages of the war. Now it was abandoned land full of ghosts and silence. He found a hidden chamber in the rocks and placed Zara inside a warm alcove lined with power cells. He used basic medical tools to scan her vitals, but they made no sense anymore. Her heart rate was doubling and slowing in unnatural patterns. Her brainwaves were off the charts, and still she glowed. Elias reached into his pocket and pulled out a small pendant he had taken from her chest during the early days, glowing faintly blue, just like her. He hadn't known what it meant then, but now he did. It matched the design on a woman's cloak in the satellite image. It was the mark of a bloodline. He had to find that woman, but as he stood and prepared his gear, Zara's body began to shake. Her mouth opened again, but this time her voice was not a whisper. It echoed through the cave, loud and strange. The glow around her pulsed like a beacon, and far away across the planet, Solari stopped in her tracks. She heard it too, the song of her child. She ran the general's visit in the silence of orbit. Alarms were never loud. They blinked quietly in red light. On board the orbital station, a report was waiting for someone to notice it. A breach, a missing escape pod, a restricted medical chamber offline. But the station staff was already uneasy that morning because of something far worse. General Maeve had arrived. Her boots clicked across the polished floor like sharp knives. No one made eye contact. Her presence made officers freeze mid-breath. Cold steel gray uniform, hair tied so tight it looked painful. Her eyes scanned everything like scanners themselves. She spoke in short, simple orders and expected even shorter answers. She was here to inspect medical logs for unauthorized activity, and she always found something. When she reached Elias's ward, his absence was quickly noticed. The chamber where Zara had been kept showed corrupted files. The power logs were tampered with, and the escape pod from that level gone. The officer in charge started to sweat. General Maeve didn't yell. She only whispered, "Find him." Down on the surface, Elias didn't yet know the storm chasing him. He was moving through the jagged valleys of Nara 5, carrying Zara wrapped tightly in a thermal cloak. Her light had grown weaker. The glowing had faded, but her body was still hot, like she was burning from inside. Her pulse was slow. Too slow. He was tired. His legs ached. He hadn't slept in 30 hours. But he knew the way. He was close now. He stopped near a broken statue of an ancient Velari priestess, half buried in stone and moss. Elias placed Zara beside it gently. He checked the cum scanner and his hand signal strength low, but the beacon he planted earlier still worked. He sent a pulse. The signal reached Solarish, had been running all day across the wild hills. Her feet were bloodied, her body worn. But when her pendant began to glow softly around her neck, she stopped. She pressed it to her chest. The signal was not random. It was calling her. Her heart beat so loud she couldn't hear anything else. She turned toward the cliffs. She began to run again, but in orbit, the AI on General Maeve's ship received the same signal pulse. They had been monitoring all illegal transmissions. The beacon from Nara 5 matched the same frequency as the missing pod. Maeve looked at the location on the screen. Her jaw tensed. Take me down, she said. Meanwhile, Elias waited by the cliffside chamber, adjusting Zara's blanket and watching her breathe. Her skin had turned pale, her lips dry. He placed his hand on her forehead, whispering softly, "You're going to see her soon, I promise." Suddenly he heard the roar of an engine. A small dropship, military grade, too precise to be a trader. He grabbed his bag and held Zara close. It was too late to run. Dust blew around the valley as the ship landed nearby. The ramp hissed open. General Maeve stepped out alone. Elias stared at her, heart pounding. He didn't reach for his weapon. He knew it was useless. She didn't draw hers either. She walked straight toward him, her sharp eyes never blinking. "You took her," she said flatly. Elias nodded slowly. Maeve's eyes moved to the bundle in his arms. "Just one glance, no shock. No questions. I should arrest you," she said, still calm. "You broke 20 protocols. You faked reports. You used military gear to smuggle alien life." "I know," Elias said, "but look at her." Maeve stepped closer. She looked at the sleeping girl. Her glow had returned slightly, faint and soft like morning light. Her fingers twitched. A small tear slid from the corner of her eye. Maeve stared longer than expected, then finally spoke. "She's remembering." Elias was surprised. "You know what she is?" Maeve nodded once. "She's not just any alien child. That mark on her pendant, it belongs to the House of Velzara. That bloodline hasn't been seen since the fall of the High Castes." Elias didn't understand all of it, but he understood this Zara was important. More than he imagined. Maeve turned her back to him and looked at the hills. "She belongs here," she said. "Not up there, and certainly not under a knife." She walked back toward her ship, then paused. "You have 2 hours. After that, I never saw you." Elias stood frozen as the ship lifted and vanished into the clouds. He sat beside Zara again, his heart racing, not with fear, but with something new, a chance. And then he heard a sound, footsteps, soft, fast, wild. A figure ran through the trees, blue skin, long white hair, robes flying behind her. She was breathless, panicked, and glowing slightly just like Zara. Solari fell to her knees when she saw them. Her voice broke as she called out a name, "Zara." The child didn't open her eyes, but her lips moved and her hand reached forward. A child between worlds. The moment Solari saw her daughter's hand move, she dropped everything. Her knees hit the hard ground as her arms wrapped around the small glowing body. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't speak at first. She only touched Zara's face again and again, like she was afraid she might disappear if she blinked. Her fingers brushed the girl's cold cheeks, her forehead, her soft white hair that had grown longer during the months of sleep. Zara's lips moved again faintly. Her voice came as a whisper, "Ma, Ma." Elias stood back silently, not wanting to interrupt. He had waited for this moment for 6 long months, but this wasn't his scene anymore. It belonged to them. He wiped his hands on his jacket. Suddenly, feeling like an outsider, Solari looked up at him, her expression filled with questions, fear, and something he didn't expect. "Hope, she's alive." "How?" she asked, her voice trembling. Elias took a step forward and spoke gently. "I found her under rubble during the raid. She was barely breathing. I couldn't leave her there." Solari stared at him, trying to understand. No human had ever done what he had done. No human had ever risked everything for a Velari child. And yet here he was, with tired eyes and torn gloves, carrying her daughter across the wild. "She was supposed to be dead," Solari said, still holding Zara close. "I buried a piece of her cloth under that shard. I thought that was all I had left." "She kept calling for you in her sleep," Elias whispered, "even when she couldn't move." Zara's eyes opened slowly. Her gaze flickered between the 2 figures beside her. Her mouth curved upward, just a little. She reached toward Solari and touched the crystal pendant around her mother's neck, the same one Elias had kept near her during the recovery. It glowed now stronger than before. Something ancient was activating. Zellery felt the warmth through her chest. Her heartbeat synced with Zara's. It wasn't just emotional, it was physical. A shared pulse. The Velari bond, something lost for centuries after the fall of the high castes, was awakening inside her child. A blood link that connected minds. And memory. Elias didn't understand it all, but he could feel the energy in the air shift. The wind around them grew warmer, the trees stopped rustling. Even the birds above fell silent. Then the ground beneath them shook, not violently, but like something beneath the surface had stirred. Zellery's eyes widened. She looked down at Zara. Then at the glowing pendant again. She's not just alive, she said. She's awakening the old blood. Elias stepped forward. Is that dangerous? Solari looked up at him, her voice slow and heavy. It depends who sees it. Suddenly, distant engines roared across the sky. They weren't military. Not human. These were old raider crafts, patched, black and fast. Elias's scanner beeped in warning. They were approaching fast, 3 ships flying low and hunting for signals. He quickly shut off his beacon and grabbed his gear. We have to move, he said. Now, Solari nodded. She stood, holding Zara in her arms like a fragile star. Together, they began moving through the cliffside paths, deeper into the forest where the scanners couldn't reach. Elias led the way using terrain knowledge from years ago. He knew there was an old shelter nearby, a hidden cave with access to clean water and natural shields. As they walked, Zara's light grew brighter. It wasn't uncontrolled like before, it was steady, focused. Her small hand held her mother's robe tightly. Her other hand pointed ahead, like she somehow knew where to go. Her voice was clearer now. 2 short words, names, Memoria Zalari, responded in their tongue. Tears in her voice every time Zara said something she remembered. A Songa Fude Drain. The cave came into view just before the ship circled overhead. Elias activated the entrance seal, hidden behind vines and rock. The door slid open with a whisper, and the 3 of them rushed inside. The lights flickered as ancient systems powered on. Inside were beds, old supplies, and a work income device, one that hadn't been used in years. Elias dropped his gear and checked Zara's vitals again. Strong, stable. Her energy had settled. Solari looked around the room with wide eyes. This was a human place. Elias nodded. We built it during the first landings, for peace talks. Before everything went to war. Solari sat down, cradling Zara against her. She whispered a prayer of thanks to the stars. Then, after a moment of silence, she turned to Elias. I don't know who you are, she said softly, but you gave me something I never thought I'd feel again. He looked at her carefully. What's that? She smiled faintly. A future. Outside, the raider ships passed by, never noticing the sealed cave below. But far above in orbit, a coded message arrived in General Maeve's private channel. A soft ping on her console. She read the data: Zara's blood patterns, energy spikes, and signature readings. The eye had captured it during her brief visit on the surface. She stared at the glowing symbols, then closed the file. She knew this was bigger than orders, and bigger than war. The mother's heartbeat, the shelter walls hummed quietly as the old air filters worked to life, pushing out dust that had settled for years. Inside, Solari sat cross-legged on a thick mat, holding Zara in her arms like she was afraid the girl might fade if she let go. But Zara was no longer fading. She was glowing again, not wildly, not like before, but warm and steady, like a living star had curled into her chest. Her breathing matched Solari's now, every inhale, every heartbeat. It was more than emotion. It was the Velari bond, a sacred connection between parent and child. Once thought lost after centuries of chaos, Elias watched from across the room. He'd given them space, letting them reconnect. He had spent the last hour checking equipment, trying to contact someone trustworthy, anyone, but no one replied. The network was either jammed or dead. Outside, the sky still buzzed with danger. Raiders were out there. And if they found Zara, they wouldn't see a child, they'd see power. Solari gently touched her daughter's forehead. You feel it, don't you? She whispered. The rhythm. The old pulse. Zara blinked slowly, her voice soft and dreamy. It feels like music inside me. Yes, Solari said, eyes welling again. That's our song. Elias finally stepped forward. I think we don't have much time. Raiders are circling the valley. They're likely scanning for energy. Solari nodded but didn't panic. They will not find her in here. The old stone hides the bond's pulse. But not for long, Elias replied. If they pick up even a trace, she must be protected, Solari interrupted, her voice suddenly sharp. She's the last of my line, of the Velzara, and now. More than that. Elias looked confused. What do you mean? Solari turned Zara slightly and gently pulled down the collar of her cloak. A small glowing pattern shimmered just above her heart, a triangle wrapped in swirling script. It wasn't there before. Elias stepped closer. It's forming, Solari said. A mark of return. It means she's no longer just of this world. Elias frowned. Then where? Solari's voice dropped to a whisper. She belongs to both. Zara shifted suddenly, her eyes bright. She looked at Elias, then pointed to the wall near the panel. There's someone outside. Elias froze. He moved to the scanner quickly, checking the motion detectors. The display pulsed once, twice, and then a signal came through. Faint, almost buried in the static, it was a distress code. Not Raider. Not Valerie. Elias opened the panel, patching it into audio. A weak voice crackled through. Medical Unit 37. We have wounded. Emergency landing. Terrain unstable. The signal faded again. Elias looked at Solari. I know that code. That's one of our med teams. They're not far. Maybe 20 kilometers. You want to go to them? Solari asked. I have to. If I help them, they might help us. And if they're real, they'll have a working satellite relay. Solari hesitated, her arms tightening around Zara. And if it's a trap, Elias nodded. I'll take the risk. You two stay hidden. Solari stood and looked him in the eye. She placed her hand on his chest. Then take this, she said, removing her pendant and pressing it into his hand. If you die with it, you feel it. Zara stood beside them now. She was stronger on her feet. She reached out and took Elias's sleeve. You'll come back, she said simply. He smiled and knelt down. Of course I will. You owe me a rematch in drawing stars. She smiled faintly and let go. Elias moved fast. The caves led through hidden paths, old from the first expedition era. He knew how to move without leaving a trace. His mind raced through possibilities. What if it was a trap? What if he led danger right back to them? But he had no other choice. If he didn't bring help, Solari and Zara would be trapped when the raiders returned in full force back in the shelter. Solari held Zara again, rocking gently. The girl leaned against her mother's shoulder and whispered, I saw him. In my dream, with fire behind him. Solari tensed. Was he safe? Zara nodded. The fire didn't burn him, it moved away. Solari closed her eyes. Outside, clouds gathered over the cliffs. Lightning cracked in the sky, revealing shapes in the distance. A second fleet of raider ships was coming, bigger than before. They had tracked the energy after Al-Solari stood up and reached for the emergency panel on the wall. She opened a hidden case containing a slender silver staff with a glowing core. She wasn't just a healer, she was trained for protection, and if the humans didn't return in time, she would fight. The one who returned her world. The storm over Nara 5 had turned the sky black. Thunder rolled across the hills. Lightning danced over broken trees as the wind howled like it remembered every war ever fought on this soil. In the hidden shelter, Solari stood with the silver staff glowing in her hands. Zara sat behind her on the floor, wrapped in warm cloth, silent and watching. The girl's light pulsed gently, now not wild, not afraid, calm, like she was waiting for something. Or summon Solari's breath slowed. She could feel the danger moving. Closer, the old stone walls of the shelter vibrated under her feet. Raiders were near. Too close. Maybe only minutes away, she whispered without turning. Don't be afraid, little light. Even if they break the walls, I will not let them take you. Zara didn't answer, but she stood, her feet touched the ground like she had never been sick. Her hand stretched out and she touched the cold wall in front of her. Her eyes closed and the glow inside her began to rise. The pendant on her mother's neck lit up again. Even though it was no longer with her, Solari stared in shock. Zara was reaching for something invisible. Her small fingers drew glowing lines in the air, shapes, symbols, circles. It wasn't language, it was something older. Something sacred. A heartbeat pulsed through the room. Not from her. Not from the cave. From the air itself, and then the door opened, but it wasn't Raiders. It was Elias. He stumbled in, soaked with rain, limping slightly with a torn sleeve and bruises across his jaw. But he was alive. And he wasn't alone. Behind him walked a soldier, older, scarred, with one cybernetic eye and a medic's patch on his chest. He looked around, stunned by the glowing room, then dropped his weapon and raised his hands. I don't want trouble, he said. I just followed the code. I saw what she did. Solari stepped forward with narrowed eyes. What did she do? The soldier turned to Elias. She saved them. Elias coughed, breathing heavy. There was a crash. Medevac team. Their engine caught fire. The crew was trapped. The soldier nodded. We were done. No way out. Then this man shows up, pulls out that pendant. And suddenly the flames vanish, like wind swallowed them. Solari looked down at Zara, who was still drawing symbols in the air. The soldier continued, slowly walking closer. I saw her image. In the fire, she looked at me. She wasn't afraid. Elias spoke again, his voice quiet. She's doing something. Something we don't understand. Zara turned around. I remember now, she said softly. Before the fire, before the sky broke, there was a song in the stars. My blood carries it. My mother's heartbeat gave it shape. She stepped toward Solari, took her hand, and pressed it over her own heart. You brought me back once. Now I bring something back too. Outside, the sky cracked open with another lightning flash. The raiders arrived, 5 ships, painted in black bone, engines howling like beasts. They landed across the ridge with sharp claws digging into the earth. Armed warriors poured out, hungry for tech, for power, for anything strange and valuable inside. The soldier grabbed his rifle. They'll blast this place open. Solari raised her staff. Then they will find the mother first. But Zara stepped forward between them. No. Her voice wasn't loud, but everything went silent. The storm paused. The wind held its breath. Even the walls of the cave stopped shaking. Zara closed her eyes, lifted her arms, and sang. It wasn't music. It was memory. A deep, glowing vibration that poured out of her chest like waves. It passed through stone, through walls, through sky. The soldiers outside paused. They looked at each other. Some dropped their weapons. Others fell to their knees. They felt something they couldn't fight, grief, joy, forgiveness all at once. Zara walked through the door of the shelter, alone, into the storm. Rain hit her skin but turned into steam before reaching her. Her light grew brighter. She opened her hands, and the sky opened with her above them all. A ripple tore through the clouds. A soft blue glow spread across the valley like dawn. And then, a sound, deep, beautiful, an ancient harmony, the bond song of the Vel'Zareth. Raiders didn't run, they bowed. One by one. Solari stepped beside her daughter. Her eyes filled with tears. She returned their memory. She whispered. Elias watched them both in awe. What did she do? Solari looked at him, voice soft but proud. She reminded the stars who we are. Hours later, peace returned to Nara 5. The raiders left without a shot fired. The story of the child who sang the Bond song again spread through the region like wildfire. The human who had saved her became more than a medic. He became a symbol. A bridge. A legend. And in the years that followed, when humans and Velari sat together under one sky, they always remembered the day a mother wept at a grave. And her child came back glowing,